Welcome back. This is kind of a different presentation this month. Normally we talk about zines, sometimes we talk about bullet journals, but today I have a different project that I've been working on, and they are slow stitch meditation rolls. And they're kind of unusual. It's all hand stitched, and you can do it with different patterns and different fabrics. And the idea is, as you are taking the time to do this slow stitching and relax, you are kind of doing a meditation while you're doing it. So you're very purposeful of the stitches, the colors, the fabrics, and you get that real sense of peace as you're working on it. In addition to that, when the meditation roll is done, you can give it to someone, or certainly sell it. You can give it as a gift. And the person can actually use this for their own kind of guided meditation. And what I mean by that is they can take time to get this out and actually spend time feeling it, touching it, contemplating the different fabrics, contemplating the stitches. The stitches feel really different. Here's some lace, so they can touch it, they can feel it. They could maybe with each panel say a certain intention that they look for, maybe somebody's health. So they can actually take their time using this for a meditation roll. It can also be good for people who need like a fidget spinner or like to have something to fondle. I know that sometimes people who are experiencing dementia might be looking to touch some fabric, and this is something that could occupy them a little bit and give them that potential to touch things and examine them. So this is the first meditation roll that I started. There are so many YouTube videos out there on how to do them, and there's a bunch of different Facebook groups as well, including some meditation rolls or slow stitching projects that you can do on a daily basis. You can also not just do these as meditation rolls, but you can do slow stitching for so many other things, including needle books and little purses. So some of this is combined with the Japanese art of mending stitch called sashiko. So I'm using some sashiko stitching in here. But I thought I'd kind of go over the meditation roll that I've completed, the one I'm working on now, and some of the tools or materials that you would find especially helpful for you if you would like to take on this topic. So in this particular roll, the majority of the fabrics are vintage. I purchased them through Etsy, but you can also get your fabrics. Perhaps you've got old clothing that no longer can be donated because it's in such rotten shape that even Goodwill wouldn't touch it. Don't just throw it away, cut it up, and you can use it for a project like this. If you were to do a memorial piece like this, it would be especially nice if you had, shirts or hankies or something from someone that you really loved and cared about, or fabrics from your youth. The other day I was thinking about which fabrics I would like to have if I could go back in time and pull them and use them for this. The yellow gingham curtains that my mom made for my childhood bedroom on Winston, I'd love a piece of those. I think that would be fantastic. That kind of thing. If you could go back in time and pick a fabric that you absolutely loved, what would that be and how would you incorporate it? Maybe you're lucky enough to have a fabric stash from a grandparent or a parent that they've saved some of those great fabrics. But I know for sure that some of these in here are actually old vintage sheets that have been cut up. This piece here and this piece here, I think my grandma actually had those sheets. These are not her sheets. But you can see the different stitching that I used. And this whole thing has a back on it that is, it's like it's not like a wool, it's more like a felt. So I've got that, so as you touch it, it's very soft. And this is like a felt batting that you might use, not as a finished product, but just something to add bulk to a purse or something like that. I think this is warm and natural, but definitely have a backer on it because it covers up all of the stitching, which you'll see on the next one. So you can see that I've got just different patterns. This is a little bit of lace here. And I love these different fabrics. This one's got a little bit of a different texture. And I've used a couple different stitches on here. I'm just kind of starting with this, so I don't use a lot of different stitches. You can see it's kind of wonky. Not all of the fabric, some of them I didn't turn over, so they're kind of pulling away. That kind of adds to the rustic charm. If you're someone who really needs absolute lines and like things to be stitched down 100%, you could do that too. But some of these, that characteristic of it just looking a little bit frayed is kind of interesting. And for these, you can either turn them over and you could put them on a roll, like a piece of wood. You could have a piece of wood and you can roll them up on there and then pin it or put a little button on it, or so you could have that. So if your roll is all the way done, this is a great way to store them. Maybe you could put a ribbon around it. This is a nice way to have it given as a gift. So that is your nice little roll all complete. You could use longer clothespins to do that. So anything like that, you could do that, or you could just wind up folding them nicely and having that be your gift. So this is the first one that I did. And this is the one that I am working on now. So you can see a little bit more of a work in progress on this. You can see the back, so you can see the stitching patterns, and that's why it's nice to have a cover put over it, something soft, some kind of cotton, flat batting, or muslin or linen, just something to put over it. And you can see how this starts is it's one long piece of fabric. This has been dyed with tea stain. You don't need to do that, but so it's one piece of fabric, and then you work by sewing the things on, the different pieces, and so then it's a doubled up fabric on the back, and then you would put the backing on it. So again, all of the pieces on this are vintage fabric. This was part of, I believe, a pillowcase. And I tried to use a little bit different of the coloring this time, different stitches a little bit. But you can see again that we've got some fraying because that's the natural quality of it. It's definitely more rustic looking. I've got some vintage lace on here. On this one, I used some vintage sequins. They're little flower sequins to finish that. More lace. This is some vintage border. A little piece of lace. On this, I did a different kind of stitch where you wrap one thread around the other for the little branches, and that feels really nice. You'll just have to trust me, it feels very nice. This has little seed beads that are in it, so you can definitely put some beads on it. And little embroidery scene, and that's where I stopped. So I have just a little bit to go. And this one will be done after I put the back on. So I'm pretty excited about that. It's a lot of fun to work on, and some of the tools that you might find helpful in this. Certainly you need fabric, and you can get fat quarters from Joann's. You can get modern fabric if you don't have scraps. So really any kind of fabric that you like, you pick the color. Any kind of real scrappy scrap that you've got. Perhaps you had something cut off of the edge of something, a real scrap, little bits of vintage fabric, and I've got some vintage lace of different kinds. And Etsy is a great place to find vintage findings like that, vintage fabrics, and definitely antique stores are another great place. When I went to an antique store the other day, I found a couple of different handkerchiefs. So I'm actually going to be using these for some of the slow stitch sewing needle books that I plan on doing. But you can see that this is a nice embroidered edge on that. So I got that from the vintage store. I think these were $3 a piece for the little handkerchiefs. This is another one. I love that pattern. This is more of a napkin So I think that's going to be great for a vintage sewing needle book, but it would also be really fun for a journal cover. So keeping that piece all in one, but I don't know how many of you are actually using real napkins now, and certainly wiping your sloppy gravy mouth on something so lovely, not my style. I'm keeping a collection of my own mucus in my pocket, not my sort of thing for a handkerchief. So there's a lot of these out there that people aren't using anymore for things like handkerchiefs, but this could definitely be repurposed into a slow stitching project. I mentioned the vintage rickrack or trim. So I was able to find some of these on Etsy, and like this one was on Etsy, but these two were at the antique store, and originally they were 15 cents and 29 cents and 10 cents. They're now $2.50 in an antique store, but here's a nice edge as well, just beautiful. I like the old packaging as well, so that's really fun to have. Something else that you might find helpful if you're not really good at doing the patterns as well. I love this Wren bird arts and their washable mending transfers. So you get the kit, and this is like a sticker on a back. So you're able to peel this back off and then place this on the fabric and then stitch around in the pattern that you want. And then you just take the whole fabric and just wash it with your hands under a little bit of hot water. This dissolves into you are left with the pattern. So this right here came from one of those. These here came from one of those. So if your hand stitching is not really great, really straight, Wren Bird Arts has all different kinds of patterns for these, and they're a lot of fun to use. So definitely encourage you checking them out. If you have an interest, you'll want beads of all sorts, so you can try different beads because they're definitely something nice to feel as you're going across. If you are going to do any kind of beading though, you'll need some beading needles because you probably can't see, but the head on these is really tiny to be able to go through those small beads. And you'll also want beading thread, and so this is kind of like fishing line. It's specifically for beading, and it's a little bit stronger to be able to hold up to things. Now, you're not going to wash one of these, or if you do, it's hand wash, so you're not going to have to worry about doing something like this that you'd be wearing all the time. But having those is very helpful. Now, in general, what I'm using for this is either a sashiko needle, which is a little bit longer, or an embroidery needle, and the embroidery needles are a little bit shorter. Sashiko does longer stretches of the patterns, so the needles are a little bit longer, but they're pretty close. And certainly if you are anywhere in your 40s or approaching 50, you're going to need a little needle threader because these are just really tiny and I can't barely see them to get them through there. So needle threader is super important. They are not very expensive and they don't last a really long time because you kind of yank on them. So I would encourage you to get like a pack of 5. As you are putting the fabrics on here, these needles are specifically, let's see if I can open this. These are applique needles, and as such, they are really small. So they're just tiny little ones. They're super sharp. They've got that special edge on them, and they make it a little bit easier to be able to pin the specific pieces down. If you had a great big needle that went across, or a great big pin that went across all there, you would be picking yourself with it all the time. But this is just a little bit to hold items down. So I think that these needles are really great. You can get them at Joann's or on Amazon, anything like that. You need thread, and certainly for slow stitching, you can use something like DMZ or Anchor embroidery thread. or embroidery floss. If you used to make friendship bracelets in the 80s, you know what I'm talking about. But I prefer sashiko thread because it's one, it doesn't come out in a pack of 5 individual threads that are put together. So depending on what embroidery pattern you're doing, what kind of stitch, you might need just one of those threads, you might need 3 threads. The sashiko thread is all together in one, so you don't actually strip any pieces out. And you can get, this is a great company, Daruma, and they have all kinds of colors. You can get these on Amazon if you can't find them in your local stitch shop. But it's a great thread. It's very soft, very pretty, but you can also get thread from individual dyers on Etsy. So I purchased this from a shop on Etsy, and this person does their own sashiko thread dyeing. So this is variegated, and it's really pretty, and it's very nice to work with. They normally come on something like this, or sometimes on a card, but you can get different colors this way, and it's a way to support local or small artisans who are trying to do something different. Now, one of the things that really helps me, I don't know if you tend to get frustrated with small projects that you work with on your fingers, maybe your dexterity isn't quite great. Thread tying into knots will send me into a rage. So my favorite thing to use is the Ponderosa thread gloss, and this comes in a little cake. And I wish you could smell this. This one is the Cascades blend, but I have a couple of different blends. And so what you do is you would take your thread and you just glide it across the cake once or twice. And it's a wax that just stops your thread from being able to knot up so quickly. It makes it it's a thread conditioner, so it keeps it from shredding, keeps it in one place a little bit. It's fun to work with. It's really helpful. Again, I hate knotting threads, so it's perfect for that. But the scents of these that Ponderosa makes, my goodness, they are all just absolutely amazing. This is really one of my favorite things. So you might be thinking, oh, I don't need that. You will get so much use out of the Ponderosa thread gloss. I highly encourage you to check it out. A cake goes a really long time, and it will make your sewing journey of any sort, hand stitching, much easier. So again, this is my new little hobby that I've been working on, and I would love to hear what your thoughts are on slow stitching. As I continue on, my next project after I finish this one will most likely be the needle books. So I'm looking to do a couple of those and maybe sell them at the Canine Carnival coming up in August at my mom's booth. But this has just been a fun little meditative project, which is relaxing me and making me feel a little bit better. It's a great way of using up some of those scraps. And it's just a really fun project to work on, and hopefully it will make a really nice gift for someone you know as well. Thanks for watching.